Another headline here. Well, no, I'm ripping that up. There's no reason to keep that one for the archives. I won't forget it anyway. Homeownership increasingly difficult for average Americans. You know what this headline ought to be? You want to know why Americans are supporting Donald Trump? So, folks, I really think this is such a big deal. And I tell anybody, people ask me questions all the time about why this or that is happening or what I think about whatever is happening. And if you look at the condition of America today for the middle class, you know, the great distinction between the United States of America and any other country, well, there are many, but one of the most important has been because of the combination of liberty, freedom, capitalism, all these various ingredients, has been the opportunity for middle-class people, meaning unconnected, no connections here, nobody paving the way, greasing skids for them, just merit-based advancement through life. There's always been the real possibility of improving your standard of living. The American dream has always been thought to be a house, but, you know, home ownership, but really that was just part of it. It was the opportunity, it was the chance to elevate yourself, the chance to climb an economic ladder. People forget this, but the history of the human condition, the beginning of time, is bondage and tyranny, dictatorship, authoritarian. It's been poverty. That's really, when you get down to it, what American exceptionalism is. We are the exception to the way most human beings have lived. And one of the elements that made this possible was education. It became, in many people's minds, a requirement. A college education became a requirement for this advancement. American homeownership, likewise, was part of the realization of this possibility of upward mobility. And I don't mean in a selfish sense. I mean, you know, a guy or a husband and wife doing better for themselves elevates their family, elevates the community, and everybody benefits from this. I don't mean this in a selfish sense. And it's always been what set this country apart. But obviously not everybody in any way, shape, manner, or form comes close to leading this country. There's always been a trust, an implied trust that the people elected to run the country, quote unquote, are good people, maybe even special, that they are a cut above, that they have qualified. It's the way lawyers look at judges in the old days. Judges had to be incredible people. They had to be fair. They had to be informed. It required really, really quality people. And this is how most people viewed their government. It's why they still do. In fact, it's a holdover. Faith that the people representing you are good people, moral people, honest people, and that they actually are doing what they're doing not for themselves, but for the entire country. Well, part and parcel of all this, middle class expansion, middle class growth, middle class economic advancement. Key to it has been education, primarily the college education. I know I've been harping on this a lot, but it's crucial. I've found that oftentimes you need to repeat things for people to remember them. A college education is no longer the ticket out. A college education is no longer the ticket up. A college education for way too many has become an impediment because of the cost and the debt that people incur getting it. So you graduate 4 years, maybe you get a master's, a doctorate, or whatever. The debt that you incur stands squarely in the way of the purpose of the education in the first place. And who's done this? Well, for lack of a better term, the establishment, the special people, the people that we've always entrusted to run and lead the institutions that defined America's greatness. And now so many of those institutions appear corrupt, some perverted, but certainly there isn't the trust in them anymore. Even to this day, usually after a sporting event, you can watch an interview of the star of the game, and invariably the player will say proudly he's the first in his family to ever go to college. It still is that big a deal. And it was something that families were proud of. But now it's become an impediment. It's a shackle in a way, because the people running education, there's never any reduction in tuition costs. There's never any reduction in overall cost to go to college. They're skyrocketing, and nobody ever seems to care about it. Let the price of gas go up a dime and everybody freaks out. Let the cost of any other necessity and then it go up and everybody has a cow. Education costs have been skyrocketing, and there's no condemnation of the people making that happen. There's no condemnation of university presidents, and many of these big universities have overwhelmingly huge endowments. In fact, there was a story yesterday. The state of Connecticut is in such dire straits in their economy, their budget, that they're thinking of getting some money from the Yale endowment. And the first person I thought of there was the Reverend Jackson, who back in the 1980s said, there's a lot of money in these pension plans. There's a lot of money here that we can go get in these pension plans. And homeownership has become the same thing now. Homeownership as part of the American dream is getting further and further. There is a story. I didn't get to it. I saw it yesterday on Drudge. I think it's Southern California, somewhere in California, that people with incomes of $250,000 can qualify for subsidies to buy homes in Southern California because they're so expensive. $250,000 salary, you qualify for a subsidy because home prices are so out of whack. It's becoming like healthcare. No way you can afford it on your own. No way are market forces involved in any way, shape, matter, or form, particularly in healthcare. So, headline, homeownership increasingly difficult for average Americans. Right now, I tell you, they're not blaming themselves. They haven't any wage increases in 15 years. They see open borders, country flooded with low-skilled, no education people. They seem to be the preferred people. Politicians in Washington seem to want them in greater numbers than they care about other Americans. And it's true because they see them as potential voters down the road. Anyway, people have lost faith in these institutions. People have lost faith in what they always trusted. And that's another reason the establishment is on the outs. Which takes me to the story at thehill.com. Vocal Trump critics in GOP open to supporting Clinton. I have been acknowledging and predicting this for the last couple of months. The establishment is a closed club. It's exclusionary, and you can't get into it. It's not merit-based. It requires a pedigree and a resume and even some breeding to be an accredited, accepted member of the Washington establishment. Both parties, lobbyists, campaign consultants, whoever, elected officials. And Republicans, Democrat, doesn't matter. The same people end up serving. At the State Department, over at the Defense Department, Department of Education, it's just a revolving door. But members of the GOP foreign policy establishment are open to supporting Ted Cruz or even Hillary Clinton for president if that's what it takes to prevent Trump from becoming commander-in-chief. In interviews with thehill.com, prominent Republicans who signed a scathing open letter denouncing Trump said that they are not wavering from their opposition to him. What's happening is you have a lot of people desperate to get anybody in there other than Trump. People are going to go for Cruz because at the end of the day, they think he's considerably less bad than Trump, said Elliot Cohen, a former Jeb Bush advisor who also served in the George W. Bush administration. Elliot Cohen, along with Brian McGrath, organized an open letter opposing Trump. that was signed by more than 120 members of the Republican foreign policy establishment. The letter declared that Trump is unfit to be president because his views of American power are wildly inconsistent and unmoored in principle, which means we wouldn't do any of that. And if we wouldn't do it, it shouldn't be done, because we are the smart people. We are the best and the brightest. We are the only ones who should be entrusted with this kind of responsibility.